Kenneth didn't move. His mother fainted moments later, collapsing into her seat, and suddenly everyone rushed toward her. Voices overlapped, panic spread, water was called for, chairs scraped against the floor, and in that chaos, Kenneth turned and walked out through the back. No one noticed, no one except me. I don't know why I followed him. I just did. I found him outside, sitting on the steps behind the venue, his head buried in his hands, shoulders shaking as he cried. Not quietly, not politely. He was sobbing like someone whose entire world had been ripped apart in seconds. I sat beside him. At first I didn't speak. Then he started talking. About how much he loved her. About how he didn't understand why she would do this. About how stupid he felt for believing everything was fine. About the future he thought they were building together. He was devastated, humiliated, angry, confused. Then he suddenly stopped. He looked at me with red, swollen eyes and asked a question that made no sense. Are you engaged? I blinked, confused. No? Why? He stared at the ground for a long moment, breathing hard, then said something that felt unreal. Marry me. I laughed because I thought he was joking. Then I realized he wasn't. Right now, he said. And that was the moment everything truly went off the rails. I stared at him, genuinely unsure whether I'd heard him correctly. The word marry echoed in my head in a way that didn't feel real, like it belonged to someone else's life, not mine. I remember laughing again, a short, nervous sound, and telling him he wasn't thinking straight. I told him he was in shock, that anyone would be after something like that this was the kind of decision people regret for the rest of their lives. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't argue, he just looked exhausted in a way I'd never seen before. I know exactly what I'm thinking, he said. For the first time today, I know exactly what I'm thinking. I told him he was hurt, angry, embarrassed, that he was reacting, not choosing. I told him this wasn't love, it was pain. I told him he couldn't fix humiliation by creating something even messier. I told him I wouldn't let him ruin his life out of spite. That's when he shook his head. This isn't about spite, he said quietly. It's about not letting her control how my story ends. That sentence unsettled me more than the proposal itself. He stood up, pacing in front of me, running his hands through his hair like he was trying to physically shake something loose from his head. He said he'd spent years building his future around Rebecca. Years convincing himself everything was fine, everything was solid, and in one moment, one word, she had taken all of that and crushed it in front of everyone he loved. I'm not going to stand back up there alone, he said. I won't give her that. I told him I wasn't a solution. I told him I wasn't a replacement. I told him I wasn't something you grabbed onto to avoid falling. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and said, "You're not nothing to me." That stopped me, because I didn't know what to say to that. I reminded him that my parents were inside, that his family was inside, that people were already in shock, that doing something like this would turn confusion into permanent damage. I told him my parents would never agree, that even if they did, I wasn't sure I could. He didn't argue, he didn't plead. He said, "Let me talk to them. If they say no, I'll drop it, I swear." I should have walked away then. I should have told him absolutely not and gone back inside. I should have found my parents, helped calm the situation, pretended this moment never happened. Instead, I nodded. I don't know why. Maybe it was sympathy, maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the lingering echo of a feeling I'd buried so well, I'd convinced myself it was gone. Or maybe it was simply that I couldn't stand the idea of leaving him alone in that state. We walked back toward the building together, but we didn't re-enter the main hall immediately. He found my parents first, still confused, still shaken by what was happening. I watched from a distance as he spoke to them. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw their expressions shift, from disbelief to anger to concern to something quieter and harder to name. My mother looked at me like she was trying to see through me. My father asked me directly if this was something I wanted, and that was the moment everything paused, because I realized no one was forcing me. No one was dragging me into this. I could still say no. I could still end this before it went any further.